Are you looking for the best 4K gaming monitors? In this video, we will look at some of the 4 best gaming monitors on the market. Before we get started with our video, starting at number 1. Gigabyte M28U or EVE Spectrum 4K. If you're buying a 4K high-refresh gaming monitor right now, by far the best category to invest into is the 27-inch category. 4K monitors around this size deliver the best performance, and are the most affordable, making them great buys for a wide variety of use cases. But it's also important to grab something from the current generation of 4K panels, otherwise you will be missing out on key features. For most gamers, the 4K monitor that makes the most sense to buy also turns out to be the best value, typically sitting in the $600 to $700 range. Our recommendation hasn't changed since our last guide update. We've reviewed several other 4K monitors since, and the Gigabyte M28U still comes out on top from a value perspective. The M28U has very good response times, with an average transition in our testing of 4 milliseconds at 144 Hz. It also has very good performance across the refresh range, so for those using adaptive sync variable refresh rates, you don't need to tweak overdrive settings to get the best experience. This IPS monitor delivers speed in the ideal range for the latest generation of IPS panels. This is complemented with great backlight strobing that works alongside adaptive sync. We get HDMI 2.1 support, which is essential when buying a new 4K monitor in 2022. Not all monitors have this feature, so make sure to get one that does. The Gigabyte's color quality is strong, viewing angles are excellent, and it does pack a wide color gamut, though not as wide as the best monitors of today. Factory calibration is above average, there's a good sRGB mode for everyday use, and contrast is typical for an IPS panel. To top it all off, Gigabyte includes a KVM switch and a height-adjustable stand, which are both neat feature additions. There are a few worthy alternatives that we should also mention. The M28U is not an HDR monitor, so if you want proper HDR, just be aware that getting true HDR will cost you 2x-3x the MSRP of this monitor. Don't be fooled by fake HDR monitors that add it to the spec sheet without including the required hardware. At number 2. MSI Optix MPG321UR-QD 32-inch. Based on the 32-inch displays we've tested, these larger variants tend not to perform as well as their smaller counterparts, usually featuring inferior response times. For many people this won't be a massive deal breaker though. In this category we can recommend the MSI Optix MPG321UR-QD. The MSI's big strength is in color performance. It has a very wide color gamut, covering nearly all of the sRGB, Adobe RGB, and DCI-P3 color spaces. This makes it an excellent choice as a dual-use monitor for gaming and content creation. You could flip this display into its built-in Adobe RGB mode for editing images in Photoshop, then play some games at 4K 144 Hz when you're done. Or use the decent sRGB mode for watching YouTube content without oversaturation. On top of this, MSI includes a KVM switch, full bandwidth HDMI 2.1, semi-HDR functionality, and decent brightness and contrast. Where the MPG321UR-QD stumbles is in motion performance. The AU Optronics panel used is decent at 144 Hz, but across the entire refresh range it's not that fast on average, especially compared to 27-inch models. MSI doesn't include variable overdrive, which hurts performance, and leads to a previous gen IPS experience, although the backlight strobing mode is not too bad. While this is a downside to the display, we've yet to test an alternative that offers anything meaningfully better. The alternate option to the MPG321UR-QD is the Gigabyte M32U, the larger brother to the M28U. We haven't tested this exact model, but have tested the Gigabyte Aorus FI32U, which is essentially the same monitor on a different chassis. If you opt for the M32U, you'll save about $120 compared to the MSI model. The Gigabyte M32U/FI32U is faster than the MSI, but features high levels of overshoot on average across the refresh range. So it's the more gaming-focused choice, however the compromise is in color gamut with more limited coverage of P3 and Adobe RGB. It lacks the versatility of the MSI MPG321UR-QD, which we do believe is worth paying $120 more to get. At number 3. Asus ROG Swift PG32UQX 32-inch. If you're after a standard 4K monitor that can also do full, true HDR, well, that privilege is going to cost you. Today's 4K true HDR displays are much more expensive than regular SDR monitors shown above. We do expect more players to arrive in 2022. Thanks to advancements in the OLED market, we think there's a bit of pressure on the HDR monitor space, and we expect to see new HDR monitor releases in the second half of the year. If you absolutely must buy a 4K HDR gaming monitor today, the only viable option is the Asus ROG Swift PG32UQX, which costs a whopping $3,000. In many respects this is a good monitor. It's true HDR, it has 1152-zone mini-LED backlighting, high brightness in excess of 1500 nits, and a 144 Hz refresh rate. For HDR gaming it looks pretty decent and delivers plenty of wow factor. But it's also got plenty of flaws. Response times are slow, much slower than other 4K monitors we've been talking about. It feels quite last generation in this area. It also lacks HDMI 2.1, so it's incompatible with the 4K 120Hz modes available in modern game consoles. Ultimately, we don't think it's worth spending $3,000 on today's HDR hardware when it looks like the market will rapidly evolve and see new options launch soon. For example, the Acer Predator X32FP will offer a 576-zone mini-LED backlight and is set to launch soon for $1,800. The AOC PD32M will bring 1,152-zone backlighting and 1400 nits peak brightness for less than $2,000. Still expensive, but less outrageous. We know this is meant to be a 4K gaming monitor buying guide, but if we may recommend something totally different instead, the best HDR gaming monitor right now is the Alienware AW3423DW, which is a QD OLED panel that delivers exceptional HDR performance, including deep blacks, per pixel local dimming, and elite contrast ratios, as we'd expect for an OLED monitor. But this is a 3440 by 1440 ultra-wide monitor, 175 Hz, which is a different format, and if you're set on 4K, this won't be for you. You can read our full review here. It's also just $1,300 and comes highly recommended. At number 4. LG C1 OLED 48-inch. If you truly want the best 4K HDR experience on PC and don't want to go with any of our previous options, don't want to spend $3,000 on the PG32UQX, don't want a QD OLED ultrawide, and don't want to wait, then the next best choice is to step up to a larger format gaming monitor. And right now there's no better choice than an OLED TV. The benefits to OLED are all based around self-lit pixel technology. Because each pixel is individually lit, they can also be fully switched off to display black, leading to extremely deep blacks, detailed shadows, and infinite contrast ratios. This is perfect for HDR, as contrast is so important. With an OLED panel you don't get blooming due to low backlight zone counts, and this looks stunning in practice. Once you've used an OLED, it's hard to go back. The nature of OLEDs is also conducive to extremely fast response times, far faster than any modern LCD. Motion performance at the same refresh rate as an LCD is in the range of 5x better or more, and this allows for backlight strobing, or black frame insertion, that smokes what LCDs can do in terms of clarity. Today's 42-inch and 48-inch OLEDs can reach 120 Hz refresh rates, which isn't the fastest going around, but sufficient for a smooth, high-refresh experience at 4K. Our recommendations in this segment are LG C-Series OLED TVs. We've yet to test the newer C2 series, hopefully we'll be getting to that soon, but the C1 series in a 48-inch size is very impressive. The LG C2 brings with it an even smaller variant, the 42-inch model, which we feel could be a lot more suited to PC gaming and desktop use, and it should deliver similar performance to the 48-inch models we've already tested. The 48-inch LG C1 can be found for as little as $1,000, which is great value for what it offers. If that sort of size is suitable for you, we'd have no hesitation jumping in to grab one. If you're more interested in the new 42-inch C2 model, they're just coming to market now in some countries, with an MSRP of $1,400, which is still a decent price if performance holds up. While we'd have no trouble recommending OLEDs to someone using it for content consumption or gaming, there are some drawbacks that are important to mention. The first is the risk of burn-in, which is not that relevant for viewing mixed content, but is likely to happen if you are using the C1 or C2 as a desktop monitor. Static content like web browsers and other desktop apps are not ideal for OLED panels, and some of the panel protection features are ineffective or annoying for desktop use, like the automatic brightness limiter and pixel shifter. These OLED panels also haven't been designed for desktop use. Their RGBW sub-pixel layout is not great for text clarity, the size might be inconvenient, and brightness is very low compared to today's LCDs, though acceptable for HDR content in the HDR mode. Again, great for content consumption, not so great for desktop users.